think we'll start off by asking you, when were you born?
When?
When?
January 8, 1896.
That would make you 97.
Seven.
97 years old.
That's right.
What would you consider to be some of the highlights of these 97 years?
Good or bad? What do you mean by highlights? Well, the worst thing is being born in a place where you have no way of getting out. You're a sharecropper farmer. You own no land, and you don't see it. You see only about 6 miles. You live in an area about 6 miles square. You don't know what's on the other side of the street. You don't know how you're going to grow up. You don't know what you're going to do. And you think maybe something will happen to you, but you're always trying to find some way to get out, even when you're young. And I didn't get out until I was 21 years old. Just accident.
How did you get out?
The First World War called me. I was drafted in the First World War.
And what did you do in that war?
I first found out that I can compete. You never know if you... Let's go back a minute. In my neighborhood, they call them neighborhoods. A neighborhood was an area of about 6 miles square. It had a church and a school and a cemetery. And that's about all you knew of what's in that neighborhood. Now, nobody, I don't know of anyone in my neighborhood, old or young, that ever went beyond the 4th grade. There's no point in going on beyond the 4th grade. When you get to the 4th grade, you can read and you can write. You can do enough arithmetic to get along. You're needed in the crops. You're needed to work. If you're either a man, a boy, or a girl, because they all worked in this. The girls worked in the field as well as the boys. And you grew until you were about 18, maybe 19. You marry early. And then you start raising cotton and kids the rest of your life. There's nothing else. Nobody ever thinks of anything else. I don't know of anybody in my neighborhood that went beyond the 4th grade. I had 10 brothers and sisters. None of them ever went before. My father and mother never went beyond the 4th grade. And there's something about that I thought ought to be changed. I wanted to go beyond the 4th grade, and I did. The only one in the neighborhood. I was alone. I had to fight it. In fact, I went through 1 year of high school, finished freshman high school, but I had to leave home to do the high school. My parents wouldn't let me go. I had to go 3 miles. I had to have a horse and buggy. I had to live with my brother. So I went to the wheat harvest in 1917. I was 21 years old. When I came back, my draft number was up. Well, back at that time, there was a lot of emotion. We never heard of war, you see, at that age, at that stage. And there was that feeling that you're going to the war, you're not coming back. Well, some of us didn't come back, of course. And everybody should be sorry. And down deep, I was so happy. I was so happy to be able to move out. I didn't mind taking a chance of getting killed if I had a chance to break out of this gridlock that I was in. Well, when I went to the war, I found it's the most leveling job. You You're with everybody. Everybody's alike. Edsel Ford, he didn't make a very good car and not too good a soldier. But Edsel Ford was exactly on the same level as I was on. He wore the same kind of shoes. They were not very good. He wore the same pants, the same underwear. He ate at the same table. He slept in the same kind of bed. He did the same thing that I was doing. And I found that there was only one thing that I lacked. I found I could compete. I didn't have the language. I found I could compete in the Army. Maybe not the best, but at least able to compete with the rest of the people. And I think that's one of the greatest things that ever happened to my life. But I had done something back in the grade school, back home, that was unusual. I'd found a book, an English book, that had diagramming in it. Now, diagramming today is a no-no. Nobody uses diagramming. I don't know why. But this book, do you know anything about diagramming? You're all right. You draw the line and you put your subject at a certain point, the verb at a certain point. All the parts of speech are put at a certain point. I studied because of the mathematics, the way it was laid out. I remember I would come home from school. I didn't have it in school. This book was separate. And I learned all of these parts of speeches because of not that they're going to use them, but the way they were put together. Well, when I got to the Army, this is what they were talking. That is, there are people. You had all levels in the Army. You had the very highest with college degrees. I didn't know what that meant, to have a college degree. Down to the one that didn't know how to get in and out of the rain, you know. They were, some of them, they were even lower than I was. I was happy about that. But anyway, I found that I can compete. But I had this problem with language. And I worked on it because this is the thing I know, but not used to it, you have problems. And I had problems for a long time. All right. I worked at it, and I guess I was pretty good. I was, at least I was average. You need to know that, you know. I can compete with the people, the level of all people. We had the whole thing, from the top down to the bottom. We had Edison's son. These big boys down to the. In fact, when I got in, you want to try to do the best you can. They had non-coms, non-commissioned officers. None of them had nothing but a cadre of officers, and all the non-commissioned officers came out of the ranks. Here you are, had that whole group. You do everything you can, you see, to get one of those commissions, and you did everything. We had a boy in there that was some kind of a prize fighter when he grew up, I guess, and he'd always go around, and you just brush him, and he has to give, you know, he puts up his hands to fight you. You can't brush him off, and you got to be a nuisance with it. Well, that kind of people, you have to give a cure for them. There's always some cure. And we had what we call Chinese boxing. Now, you never heard of Chinese boxing. In fact, nobody ever heard of Chinese boxing, but we invented it. We told this boy we were going to get a fellow to box with in Chinese boxing. Well, he didn't matter what it was, just so we had boxing. And see, we had a fellow that he couldn't fight anything. I mean, he was low in anything. What are we going to do? We're going to put you in the ring. We're going to put just one glove on you. We got a left-handed guy. So we have him, give him one glove, the left-hand glove, and give you the right-hand glove. You put you in the ring together. We blindfold you both. Now, you can't hold the other guy, but you can touch him. And we let him go, all right. But what we didn't tell our boxer is we took the blindfold off of the other fellow. There's no need to tell you how he beat that fellow to death, of course. We put the blindfold back on him and took his off. It's something we never told him, but he never bothered us anymore. But we had that kind of thing. But anyway, you were working for that one of those non-commissioned. You didn't have to do KP, you didn't have to do guard duty, and you got a little more money. Now, we were getting $30 a month. They would get you up to $33 if you're a corporal. You got $36 if you're a sergeant, which is a lot different. Well, I got to be we didn't give them the commissions, but I got to be a sergeant in the making. And doing pretty well. I found I could compete. So we had a National Guard, Arkansas National Guard, 153rd Infantry. What an infantry. These kids had gone into the Army for the purpose of getting a check every Friday. They never dreamed there was going to be a war coming along, you know. They'd been moved down into Louisiana, and they not only had all of the recruits, all of the people in the Army were kids, but the officers were that kind. And I was transferred into that outfit. The worst group you could think of. I was in Company E, A, B, C, D, E. So there's a bunch of companies in front of me, down to L. All right. They couldn't do anything. We'd learn more in the few months we were in this reserve than they'd ever learned. I realized that we were going to go overseas someday. And we may have a group of people facing us in trenches that is not very friendly to us. They may be shooting at you. And we, with this group, we're going to have to shoot back at those people. Now, I went on the rifle range with those kids. Why? They couldn't hit the blackboard. I was stuck in this thing. There's just no way. There's no way to get out. You can't go AWL. They'll catch you. You don't want to shoot yourself. It might hurt. And finally, they started a officers training school for officers coming out of the ranks. Now, usually they just pick them out of civil life, the best trained people, and give them 3 months. This time they'd pick people that were in the ranks, that were qualified, and they went to the officers training school. The qualification was you had to have a high school diploma and pass and do an examination, pass a test. The test was mathematics. I was always good in mathematics. I didn't have a problem there, but that high school, I'd had 1 year in high school. They were choosing them out of the ranks A, B, C, D. I was in E. I thought, how in the world can I get out? Because that would be one way if you could get through, if you could happen to get into an officer's training school, you could at least get out of that group. I don't know, I asked somebody once, well, how do they know that you had do they send you the high school diploma? Oh no, now they were taken out of the company next to me. No, you just tell them what high school you were from. Oh yeah, you tell them what high school you were from. Well, I went to the 4th Officers Training School. And I found I could compete. I wasn't the best. I think there was 250 million. I think I was 27th. But one strange thing, when I tell people this thing, they don't believe me, that I was at Eisenhower at Gettysburg. And there's always a snicker about that. And I was with Eisenhower at Gettysburg. In Camp Colt, Pennsylvania, which was at Gettysburg, it was on the old battlefield of Gettysburg, Camp Colt was. They'd had the first tank corps in the service. And they needed 100 special officers training in infantry that had come up through the ranks and got the degree. And I happened to be one of those 100 that went to Gettysburg. And whom do you suppose was the commanding officer at Gettysburg? Lieutenant Colonel Dwight Eisenhower. So I was with Eisenhower at Gettysburg. So I stayed at Gettysburg till after the war. And when I came back to Arkansas, came back to your own hometown, and they didn't know me. The change that was made. Your manners are different, your speech is different. And there was no way that I could adjust. I stayed 2 months. Then I took a freight train and went west and never went back. I found out that the thing I needed most anyway, there might be other things, was an education. I had only high school. I went into the wheat harvest at El Reno, Oklahoma. My purpose was to get an education. I didn't have any money. And I happened, it was just an accident, to be with a family whose wife, the wife of this family, had graduated from a little college about 40 miles from El Reno, Kingfisher, Oklahoma. The little college called Kingfisher College, small, very small college. About 20 male students and about 80 students in all. I'd gone through wheat harvest with this family, and she wanted me to go to college. How? She said, I'll get your way to go. And she worked on it. And when the fall came, she had me a job at this little college to work from a boarding room and go to college. Well, I finished. It was one of these colleges that had a high school, both high school and college. So I took my high school there and my college there, working my way. And the college went broke when I'd finished my first year in college. I'd finished the high school, worked with her each summer. I'd go back to their place and work in wheat harvest, make enough money to do that. Good money in wheat harvest that time. You got 50 cents an hour. You worked 10 hours a day. You didn't pay board and room. You eat at a shack, and you sleep in a straw pile. In fact, I went through a whole summer without taking my shoes off. Well, you have to get used to it. I was a freshman in college when the school work. Then I could go to another school like it for the same tuition I paid there. I paid $55 a semester for tuition. I came to Drury College. It was one of the schools that was in that group. I spent 3 years in Drury College. Then I got a job teaching. Then I went to University of Colorado, got a master's degree. Indiana University, PhD degree. And in all, I got 5 college degrees. And I came back after all of it's done. I was at Carnegie Tech, teaching at Carnegie Tech. That was 5 years. I went from Carnegie Tech to Indiana University to get my last degree. I always wanted to come back to Drury because it's a nice town, nice place. I could have gone back for $3,500. Now that's a lot of money, but I chose to come to Drury College for $1,600. So I came to Drury College for $1,600. I've been here ever since.
What are some of the things that you've done at Drury? I know one time you told me about the aeronautics.
Do you want to know about the aeronautics?
Tell us about the aeronautics.
Mm.
About how you got involved in it.
There was just a little bit something shady about aeronautics. I suppose there's something shady about all your lives, you know, just a little. Well, I always wanted, I'd done a lot of studying in compound interest. In math, compound interest is the most cockeyed thing in the world. You put a little money in, if you just leave it there, it just grows and grows and grows. I thought, well, if I could get a little money and put it in something, it'll grow and grow and grow. But how are you going to get it? You ask the average person, if you had, here's one of the things you have. If you had $10,000 when you graduate in college, just put it in most any fund. When you retire, you'll have $600,000. Well, you know what he'll say? But I don't have the $10,000. But I find out that if you had $10,000, you maybe wouldn't do that because you have a car you need to buy, you need to fix the house. There's so many things you need to do that you won't do that. But I thought if I could get $10,000, I would do this kind of thing. Maybe I'd change my mind anyway. So in the Second War, when the Second War came on, the War Department knew that we're going to have a lot of flying. Unfortunately, the people back home, certainly the people in Drury College, didn't know that. And they were against the war in the first place. There's a lot of, the women didn't work, you see. None of our women worked for a living. You born 30 years too soon. Too late, I mean. Okay. And they would stomp around. Now, if you don't fight them, they don't fight you. Well, yes, ask the Polacks. They'll tell you a different story. So they decided they would give a program to every college in the country on aviation. They call it civil pilot training, not war training. It was changed to war training after we went into the war. You call it civil because it sounded a little better than war. So we got a program, civil pilot training. SMS got a program, in Southwest Missouri. Now, they got a program. I knew the man who was in charge, the physicist over there, quite a good friend. He didn't want the program. I wanted my program because there's money in it. He didn't get any money, neither did I. But anyway, now, our president didn't want this program. I think he wanted it, but he couldn't identify himself with it because it was war. Drury's president. It was war, and he stayed away from it. So he had nothing to do with it. He had nothing to do with this civil pilot training program any time. Only thing he did was to gather the money at the end of the program. It got to where it paid a lot of money. When we finished, it paid $50,000 a quarter. Now $50,000 isn't much, but then you'd have to multiply that by 15. Now it would be $750,000 a quarter. 3 quarters of it. Well, that would be quite a bit of money. I liked it because I liked aviation. So I had charge of it, completely in charge of it. But what we did, what the War Department did, they said, well, now, we're going to give you this program, but after that, you've got to be good enough to earn it. They don't give all of these programs to all the colleges. After that, you're going to they'll take the ones that have done the best job, that are prepared for it. Well, that was what I was interested in. Well, I did this program, and I was talking to the man over in SMS. He says, we've got connection. We've got everybody over there wants it. And he said, you watch them. They're going to Washington, D.C. to see what they can do, pull strings, the big boys. Well, I couldn't do that. But anyway, we got through the first program. But what they were doing, our headquarters were in Kansas City, all this. And out of Kansas City, they would have inspectors, two young fellows, that come down and inspect. At the end of a program, they would inspect the troops flying and also the ground. And I thought, well, maybe I can work at the lower end of this thing, not at the upper end. And so I'd had a program. We had a second program. And we had taken over the girls' dormitory. And there was the house mother had a suite. And these two guys, now they were getting $125 a month. They were getting $6 a day per diem, board and room. Well, now $6 out of $125 meant quite a bit, you see. And I said, now, you boys come in here, and there's a room here that you can come and live in. You don't pay me anything, board and room, nothing. You just come. You can leave your stuff here between times. Anything you want to leave here. You just come in here anytime. You go down, eat, and sleep, and you go. You don't have to pay me anything for it. Oh, yeah? Well, you know what happened? These guys would tell me long beforehand. They'd kind of look things over. You could look at well, the next program has to have a airplane on the grounds of the ground school. Who ever thought of that? You sure? Yeah, they're going to have. Well, so you know what? The airport, the ones who were doing the training, they're the ones making the money. They were making money. They say, well, we'll put in anything that you want. The school knew nothing about this. I need an airplane. I'll put you in an airplane. We put an airplane in the hall upstairs, up in the attic. What in the world are you putting an airplane up in the attic for? We took it down and put it in there. We cut a door, and some woman came up and looked at that. She says, how did you get this airplane in here? I said, well, we just backed it off and just ran it through that door. Well, she said, when you tear the wings off, yeah, but you see, we put the wings back on it again. Anyway, when it came time for this second program, they said, what you need, he scattered over the state, what you need is an airplane and this and that and the other. I just happen to have one. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to get the program. SMS got only one program. I got programs all along the line by that method. We got the highest rating of programs in the state, and they didn't know. The president didn't know. Well, what are you doing? We had a link trainer, a trainer for blind flying in the basement of the boys' dormitory. We got it in there long before the program came up. Why? It cost a lot of money. I didn't pay the money, but the airport paid. Well, finally, you had those who can get a blind flying airplane. Well, we just happen to have one. Okay. This is in 1939 we started. Along about 1941, I talked to the Board of Trustees president. I said, now, I'm doing a lot of work here. I come back here at 6 o'clock at night, and I work till 10 o'clock. Nobody's giving me anything. I don't get a penny out of that. I said, How about you giving me the last program? One quarter. Give me the. They didn't know how much money I was getting. Nobody knew. The school knew, but it was. Well, sure, we'll do that. The president of the board of trustees sent me. I said, well, just write it up. I'd like just to have it in the contract. He gave me a contract. I was to have the summer program, 1943. Summer program. What that would mean, I would get $50,000 for a summer program. The president learned about that in February 1943. I don't know how he learned it. He came to me disturbed. He said, look, I understand you're supposed to get $50,000 for a quarter. Yeah, that's what you're getting, aren't you? You have been getting that for 4 or 5 years. Well, but that's a different thing, you know. We just can't do that. Oh, you can't give me $50,000 for this last program. No, that would be ridiculous. He didn't know. I said, do you know that I have a contract from the board of trustees, president? No, he didn't know that. I showed him the contract. He was disturbed about that, very disturbed that I was going to get $50,000. This was at about February, maybe March. On April the 15th, 1943, he jubilantly called me into his office. Oh, I've got good news for you. Now, the War Department had found out that we had a good system in aviation, and they wanted to take over the Air Corps. So the president brought the Air Corps in on the 15th of April. Oh, they had a lot of hoopla. Oh, we did this. You didn't get a penny out of it, but board and room. I was in the reserve during the 2 wars, and I was held out because of this aviation program. They wanted me. They called me up, but I was holding. Well, of course, after the program was over, I was free to go to the Army. They called me, and I was to go on a Monday morning. I don't know, sometime later. Going to go to the West Coast. And on Sunday night before, A.H. Compton of Chicago University called me. Now, they have the Skaggs Field, football field, with all of these bleachers, all this space underneath the bleachers. He says, we want you on a program. We have a hush-hush program up here. We can't tell you what it is. But if we do the things we expect to do, that we hope to do, we'll end the war. It was the atom bomb. He didn't tell me what that was. Well, he had a program. They did come in there. One of them there in Las Vegas. They had another one. Los Alamos, not Las Vegas. Another one in Tennessee. Well, I missed that by, I don't know how long. But anyway, I went to the West Coast immediately on Monday morning. And when I got out there, I had the radar network of the Los Angeles Harbor Defenses. We'd had Pearl Harbor and had a mess up there, you see. The radar messed up. And I had installed the radar. And when I got out of that, I saved $10,000. And I put it in the market.
In the stock market.
I made money.
I guess that's the way to do it.
I gave my kids the money. I give all my kids the money that I made. Not all of it, just see. But a lot of it. If you just can put it away and leave it long enough, it'll make you a lot of money.
think you need to know how to invest too. But if you
Yes, well, what I did, after I'd done it a lot on my own, I found a guy that knew investment. He'd come out of the stock market in New York, and he was a Drury. He came back to Drury. He said, I'm starting a group. Now, if you want to risk some money, it's risky. Don't give me any more than you can risk. And I'd seen his record. He had a good record. So I gave him $25,000. He made 21% interest for 22 years.
That's amazing.
And I gave it to my kids.
That's a good way to do it. Tell me about, after you came back from the war, you went back to teaching
Yeah,
at Drury,
yeah.
teaching physics?
Yeah.
Talk about that for a little while. What was it
It's
like?
very odd. It's kind of an odd thing. I found in the war that we had a lot of intelligent boys, men, that went into it about the way I went in. They'd had an education, some of them had, but they hadn't had the practical side of education. Even the physicists, even the scientists. I found a lot of people who never took science because it's hard. You know, they don't take things as hard. You get a notion. You don't take math because it's hard, which is that is not true. It's the way it's taught, I think. And I noticed that some of these very intelligent people, if you just talk to them about the natural things, the things that are simple, things that are around you. How can you suck soda through a straw? What makes the soda come up through the straw? I don't know. Would you like to know? Yes, I've always thought it's that kind of thing. So I came back and I thought, well, I'm going to start a program that has that kind of thing. I call it physical science. It was a program for non-science students. If you're going to take the normal sciences such as physics, chemistry, and that, you're not eligible for this, but you have to want some of that simple things. And I started out with one section. And I had a little problem because so many times you have these snap courses. They try to avoid the hard things, you know. If I could take a course and get something in physics, maybe it's a little course I'm romping through physics, something you don't have to work at. And I had a lot of those students that came in, and I had to flunk a lot of them because it wasn't a snap course. It took a long time to learn it. It wasn't a snap course. But I finally got a hold of the people that wanted to come in and learn something about science without going through all the mathematics that goes with it. And the rest of my life in Drury, I thought I'd have at least 3 sections of that. It grew to 3 sections. About 100 students. At one time, I had nearly all the students in Drury. And this is the course that I like. I spent my life practically with that one single physical science course.
Now, you still maintain your office at Drury, and you still go in every day.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
Well, when I retired, you see, I retired at 72. Most people retire at 63 or 62 when they get their Social Security. So many people say, well, if I can get that, I'll start early. I'd advise not to start too early because what they do, you see, if I could start the Social Security at 62, I'd take 15% off, of course. You get that. If you wait till 65, you get 50. But now, you hear a lot of this talk, if I could start at 62, I can get free money. This thing getting money free is something, you know, that is fascinating. And I'll make money if I don't die until I'm 76. Now, if I live longer than that, I'd be losing money Of course, you have a choice. You can shoot yourself at 76, but normally they don't do that. I wasn't interested in it. I worked until I was 72. Then I just quit. I had to quit, I guess. I don't remember. But I don't know. You go to these meetings and you say, well, how do you live so long? You know, if I'd got my Social Security at 62, I'd lost a lot of money. Of course, you might live beyond 76. Now, I kept it up. Then I had another thing on the side that I got interested in. I don't know how I got interested in this. Back when I was in college, back when I was teaching full time, the Coca-Cola bottling company sent me a letter. They said, now, every 10 years we get an update of our product. Now I'm sending you what was updated the last 10 years. A man, I forget his name. He tested the product, he tested the bottles, he tested everything about Coca-Cola that you'd think. He said, we don't tell you what to do. You do everything you can. Would you like to have this job? Well, yes, I'd like to have the job. So they sent me. Said, all right, we'll send you the bottles out of the local plant here. Any amount of bottles you want. Truckload of it, doesn't matter. Do you want them empty or filled? I said, well, I'll take them filled because I know how to get rid of them. And I could get rid of them because every time a truckload of bottles come in, I could get them empty in a hurry. You'd be surprised. I did everything to these bottles that you could think of. I broke the bottles. They sent me a bottle tester, weighed 70 pounds. A big bottle breaker. Oh, it was a mammoth thing. I looked at that thing and said, we'll have to do better than that. I spent a lot of my time making equipment. But anyway, I did everything I could think of. And after that was done, they said, would you like to go to a case in Columbia? We have a Coca-Cola case where a lady says she broke a bottle broke in her hand and that thing, and we'd like for you to test this bottle to see if that's the way it broke. Well, I don't know what the outcome was, but anyway, I did test that bottle. And I went to 900 other cases just like it before it was all over with. 30 years I tested bottles for all the bottling companies. Root beer, beer, and on the side I did that.
Do you still do that now?
No, I quit that one. After 900 cases, I quit.
What do you do at Drury now? Do you? Because I know that you have your office.
Okay, so when the time came for me to retire, we'd built this new building, the science building, Lay Hall. They hadn't occupied it yet. They were occupying it at that point. And when they occupied, they found 2 rooms down in the basement. One of them is a mammoth room, bigger than this room. The other is a smaller room. Said, we don't have any use for these rooms. If you want these 2 rooms, you can have them. Why? Well, just move in and just take them. Do as you please. Well, I moved in. I looked at that big room, and I thought, well, what'll I do with this? The other room has all kinds of machinery, lathes, anything that you could work with, saws, boring machines, and that kind of thing. But this big room filled up with junk. I don't know. I look around and I say, well, what is all this stuff? And so I live in there, and I go into this other room, shop I call it. Now what I do in the shop, is to build things. I do all the repair work for the sciences in the building. Now, science, you send this stuff away to be repaired. It's expensive to do that. Learn it. And anybody that wants something made, I sell them. I sell this stuff. And I sell this stuff, maybe the reason I get so much business is because I don't oversell. My granddaughter had two of them that graduated there. She had a girlfriend that used to come down. They used to come down because I have two refrigerators, have Cokes in one of them. That's the attraction. And I'd bought a table from a company in the East, a little table that if they finished it would be $350, but if I finished it, it'd be only $139. It's a nice little table. It's cherry, nice wild cherry, beautiful. I just finished this table off. I bought it, and she came in, this girl. Oh, she liked that table so well. Well, I said, I'll sell it to you. Oh, she says, I don't have the money. Well, I'll sell it to you for what you have in your pocketbook. That's a little chancy, you know, particularly for a student. She emptied that out. If I could have taken the rest of the stuff and sold it, I'd have been better off, but I wouldn't allow her to take anything but the money. She had a dime, a nickel, and 2 pennies. This is it. She took the table and went away. And the things I sell now are for 17 cents. I think I sold you something for 17 cents once. Mm-hmm. All right. You did. And I find if you do that, you have plenty of work to do. You're never out of a job. These people that are jobless, I can tell them how to get a job. Sell your stuff for 17 cents. And that's what I do. I come in the shop, and I do things for the departments, and I sell things that people want for 17 cents.
One thing that I found interesting, and this will go back a little bit, I didn't realize that Drury had a football team at one time.
Yeah.
And you played football for Drury.
Yeah. You know what? I played. If you ever have any people, don't let them play football. We would play football. I play football, basketball, baseball. I have 13 college athletic letters. Now let me tell you about football. It is a rough game. It is a dangerous game. We played Rolla. We always play Rolla the last game. The reason we play Rolla the last game, we wouldn't be in any shape to play any other game. We got beat. That is the worst game. The competition between us and Rolla was always the worst of anybody. My last game, we played at Rolla. I came home with a broken rib. Now, they're not too dangerous, but they are bad for the first 3 or 4 days. Nobody, you don't go to a doctor. You know you're on your own. The doctors are out. They cost you money anyway. I lived with a freshman. That last year, the seniors wanted to take the freshmen and kind of, now we had bunk beds that were here, they're parallel, and there's the space between them. They were about this far apart. John Darling, we have John Darling gave something for the school. We have one of our music students has his name on it. Anyway, John was a sleepyhead. John could talk in his sleep and carry on even a better conversation than when he's awake. You talk to him, and he just talk to you regularly and go on, and you never know. I'd gone to bed, and now, your first night is a bad one on a broken bone, broken rib. I took a light bulb and wrapped a towel around it, put it down on Every so often I'd take it out so it wouldn't get too hot. I'd put it back in, take it out, put it back in. Along about 3 o'clock in the morning, I'd gone to sleep, and it stayed too long. I looked, and I could see just all the fire inside. Now I knew what I wanted to do is to take it out and wad it up here, and have John to take it down to the bathroom, and then open it up. That'd be fine. I told him, I said, John, wake up. He was raised up in bed, sleep. What do you want? I've got a towel here, and it's hot. It's red hot, and I wadded it up. I want you to take it down to the bathroom. Oh, yes, that's all right. Throw it over here. John, I can't throw it over there. We argued back and forth. He was asleep. So finally, I thought maybe it'd stay together. I thought I'd just pitch it over. We opened up. He jumped out and threw that on the floor and stomped it out with his bare foot. I mean, he stomped that out. And of course, you can imagine what he did when he woke up. Finally woke up. He looked at me strangely. What has happened here? Well, you can't laugh with a broken rib. But he wore gunny sacks around his feet for a week. They had blisters as big as a dollar. Athletics. I would come home. We play these on Friday night, Friday afternoon. All of our ball games are Friday afternoon. I'd go home. I couldn't get out of bed Saturday and Sunday. Just beat up. Maybe by the middle of the next week you could move around. Oh, that is a bad. Don't ever play football. It doesn't pay you. Basketball's all right. You got a finger from basketball. I broke that finger and it never healed up. I got a knot from it. That's the only thing I said. But I got a rib from football. A lot of fun when you're young. Blah, blah, that's what does it, see. Oh, blah, blah, you do this. And the president would come down, you see, when we're taking a bath. Oh, how glorious, how wonderful this is. You were just out. When I came back to Drury, I said, Prexy, same president. When I came back to teach, 8 or 10 years later, you didn't say anything about my football. You wouldn't tell how I went on. Well, he says, you don't need that here, the thing I want you for. But don't play football. Don't let your kids play football. Doesn't pay. You've got a son. Don't let him play football.
I think that's all. You want to talk about anything else?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Ask him if that's good.
That'll work.
That works.